There is a pattern in relationships that dissolves the perception of love in any relationship. It is the reason for so many breakups that we see today, and not only that, it's the reason why so many relationships end very, very badly. And that pattern is the, if you loved me, then, fill in the blank. Most of us feel like we have a handle on what is in our best interest. And whether we are actually accurate about that or not, what matters is that we perceive we know what's in our best interests. Because at some visceral level, we are aware that when somebody loves us, they take us as a part of themselves. Therefore, they can't really act against our best interests without acting against their own best interests. So we feel at some level that if a person loves us, they will act in our best interests. This means anytime we perceive somebody to act against our best interests, what do we make it mean? They don't love us. For example, Rachel perceives it to be in her best interests for a man to be fully committed to her, to want her completely, and to be monogamous with her. Therefore, when Mike, her boyfriend, flirts with other women, she makes this mean he doesn't love me. She has decided that if a man loves her, then he will not flirt with other women. She has decided that if a man loves her, then he will commit to her and want only her and be monogamous with her. This is the if you loved me, then X pattern. The problem is that Mike was an enmeshed child. This means his perception of what's in his best interests drastically oppose what's in Rachel's best interests. He perceives that it's in his best interest to be free and autonomous. When Rachel flips out when he flirts with other women, or when Rachel has huge issues whenever he drags his feet relative to getting married, he perceives that as her being against his best interests and therefore not loving him. Mike has decided that if a woman loves him, she would let him be free and not restrict him by expecting him to commit to her needs for security over his needs for enjoyment. This is the if you loved me then X pattern. Another example is that Justin perceives that it's in his best interest for people in his life to value his art and approve of him being an artist. When his parents keep responding unenthusiastically to his art and instead keep bothering him about when he's going to go to college or get an internship, he no longer feels loved by his parents because he perceives them to be acting against his best interests. Justin has decided that if his parents love him, they would support his art and the fact that he's an artist. This is the if you loved me then X pattern. Ironically, his parents actually think that they are acting more in Justin's best interest than he is. They perceive that what they're doing is in alignment with his life success and therefore they perceive it to be loving. When Justin refuses to get serious about his professional life, they fear that he will fail and that they will not only have to worry about him and support him forever, but that they will look like bad parents in society because of it. They don't feel loved by their son because they've decided that if their child loves them, he will make the most of the opportunities given to him and be grateful for those opportunities. Also, they've decided that if their child loves them, he would also make choices that don't worry them, and that make them look good instead of bad, and that take financial pressure off them, not put financial pressure on them. This is also the if you loved me then X pattern. Or for example, Joanna has decided that if her friends really love her, they'll be considering her best interest, which is that anytime she confides something in them, they will keep that confidentiality sacred. Therefore, when she tells Megan, her friend, something that she expects to be kept in confidentiality, but Megan goes and tells another friend, she decides that was totally against my best interest, which means that Megan is not a good friend and doesn't love me. This is the if you loved me then X pattern. Megan decided that it was in her best interest to tell this other friend of hers what Joanna had said because what Joanna said affected her relationship with this other person. So she needed to confront them on what was said so as to get the truth. Guess what? Megan's decided that Joanna's a crappy friend and also doesn't love her. Why? Because in Megan's book, a person can only love her if they don't put her in this position, to have to choose the other person's best interests, in this case Joanna's need for her to keep a secret, over her own best interests, which is her need to confront someone so as to get the truth. And because Joanna does expect this, she doesn't love her. This is the if you loved me then pattern. All of us enter into relationships. I mean any relationship, whether it's a family relationship, a work relationship, a friendship, a romantic partnership, or any other kind of relationship there is. with a whole collection of these if you love me then you would, fill in the blank, and if you love me then you wouldn't, fill in the blank. Each and every one of us has found ourselves on both sides of this equation. Every single one of us has experienced a circumstance where something that somebody does or doesn't do makes us feel like they don't love us at all. Each and every one of us has been in a position where we feel like all of a sudden it's a lose-lose because the other person only feels like we love them if we do something that's completely against our best interests. Every one of us has also been in the situation where something we do or don't do makes somebody decide that we don't love them when actually what we did had nothing to do with whether we loved them or not. One of the most difficult elements of life is that we live in a world of separation. Relationships can actually only exist in a world of separation because for a relationship to happen, there must be at least two parties. We have a separate identity, so even when we love, our own needs and wants and therefore best interests can be different than those belonging to the person we love, and even oppositional to their best interests. Problems with this if you loved me then, fill in the blank, pattern occurs when we perceive ourselves to be in a conflict relative to our best interests and the other person's best interests in any scenario. And this makes us feel like we're stuck in a lose-lose. And it's at this point that we bring another completely faulty belief into the equation. That faulty belief is that love is selfless and that love implies self-sacrifice. When we perceive ourselves to be in this conflict of best interest scenario, we decide that the other person really only can prove to us that they love us if they sacrifice their own best interests for our sake. Therefore, when someone doesn't do this, and they won't, we feel like we're totally unloved. Not only will we feel like we're unloved, we will feel like the perception that there was ever love in the relationship is actually an illusion. Loving something implies wanting it to have what it needs and wants and what is in its best interests. It is not loving to expect a person to forfeit what they need and want, or to forfeit their best interest to prove that they care about you and like you and love you. This means love recognizes the beauty in conscious transaction. If you want to learn more about this concept, you can watch my video titled Be Consciously Transactional, Why Every Relationship is Transactional. To break free from this pattern, you have to do two seemingly oppositional things. The first is you need to question your conclusions relative to the if you loved me then fill in the blank pattern. Most of the time, what a person does or does not do has absolutely nothing to do with whether they love you or not. Instead, it has everything to do with what they perceive their best interests to be, or to not be. The reason that I say you have to question these conclusions, really ask yourself, is it true that if they loved me, they would or wouldn't fill in the blank? Because we may just be adding meaning that doesn't actually exist. And that can be a very dangerous thing. To understand more about this, you might want to watch my video titled Meaning the Self-Destruct Button. The second thing you need to do is to put genuine energy and focus into understanding every single person that comes into your life. And they need to put energy and focus into understanding you. You need to put more energy and focus into understanding someone than you ever put into loving someone or making someone feel loved. And this is the reason. When you genuinely put enough energy into something that you understand it, you suddenly perceive what it perceives its best interest to be, and maybe even if you're lucky, what its actual best interests are. This allows us to act in their best interests and to see when there is going to be a conflict between their best interests and our own. And this puts us in the position to be able to communicate about it and problem solve and caretake and resolve that conflict of best interests before it turns into something that dissolves the perception of there being love in the relationship. Doing this makes it possible to build and maintain trust in the relationship even when there is a conflict of interests. And doing this makes a person feel cared about and loved. To understand more about this, watch two of my videos. The first titled, Stop Trying to Love Them and Start Trying to Understand Them. And the second titled, Trust, What is Trust and How to Build Trust in Relationships. Loving someone does not suddenly make our needs and our desires cease to exist. It doesn't suddenly make it so that our own best interests don't exist and all that exists is their best interests. Love is not selfless. Instead, what it does is include the other person's best interests as a part of your own, and what this does is make it impossible to play a zero-sum game. This means if you truly love someone, you care about both, listen to the word, both your best interests and the other person's best interests. And this means you're looking for a win-win. what you're looking for, and the antidote to this pattern, is a way to meet their own best interests, or act in accordance with their own best interests, as well as yours. You're looking for the highest and best solution. Have a good week. If you liked this video, be sure to share it, like it, and also subscribe to my channel so you can see more content like this. But I want to personally thank you for taking the initiative and having the bravery to step into the space of awareness, not only for yourself, but for the benefit of those around you.